So if you're watching this video, you no doubt know that ChatGPT went from zero to ubiquity incredibly quickly. It is the fastest growing web application in the history of the internet. And it really was this aha moment for so many people when thinking about how to think about AI and how AI was going to affect our life. It didn't just change consumers' perspectives, though. The archive repository really shows how it also changed how people thought about research in the field of computer science. So you can see this dramatic growth in the number of people talking about large language models and generally this approach to AI as soon as ChatGPT was released. And it's not just computer scientists and everyday consumers who are thinking about this. Business leaders are thinking about this as well. So 65% of executives in a recent survey by KPMG are confident that generative AI is going to be transformational to their business and industry. But 1 to 2 years from now, 60% of them don't plan to have implemented their first generative AI project yet. And this to me really shows the tension right now. People know this solution is magical, but they're not quite sure how to get started. And the argument I'm going to make in this series of videos is that the killer app for generative AI is innovation. And not only is the killer app for generative AI innovation, but innovation groups showing people how to do generative AI will also provide a roadmap for so many other knowledge workers. And this is really kind of a remarkable point in time situation. If you think about it, over the years, there have been times in the past where technology inflection points have led to inflections in terms of how we actually create startups. So famously in the mid 2000s, the combination of Ruby on Rails, Amazon Web Services, and the iPhone really changed how people built mobile and web startups. But it didn't stop there. That led to a change in how we built startups in terms of funding them with the accelerator model pioneered by Techstars and Y Combinator. And then within a year after that, Eric and Steve and a number of people came along with the lean startup methodology. I was privileged to contribute a little bit to that with the book I wrote on the science of growth, right? The point is, though, that those businesses that were being built weren't just mobile and internet businesses. It really changed the process of building and delivering transformative innovation in general. Because again, sometimes technology is so disruptive that it actually changes the processes by which we build startups. And I think generative AI is going to be the same. So for a moment, I don't love the term classic machine learning, but I don't have a better term for it. If you rewind the clock to even the middle of 2022, when we talked about machine learning, we generally talked about one of the following verbs around the projects. The machine learning system was predicting, classifying, or clustering, right? Predicting, i.e., regression on steroids, or sometimes the dirty secret is a lot of those machine learning projects were just regression at the end of the day. But machine learning, doing predictions, right? Or we could do classification, either yes, no, or classifying things into multiple categories. And then sometimes there was this unsupervised approach where you ended up clustering information together. Well, generative AI has created another verb that we need to keep. So I think now machine learning projects will have one of 4 verbs with them. They'll still be predict, classify, and cluster. There is still a lot of low-hanging fruit in this classical machine learning approach. But in addition to that, we also have to add the verb create, creating new text, creating new images, creating new audio and video, and also creating new specialized text. The best example of this being creating code. And so if the verb is create, then we should think about what functions in a business do a lot of creation. And obviously some of these include things like marketing and sales emails and other sort of go-to-market business functions. But a big one is innovation, right? And I believe generative AI will be transformational across the life cycle of startup development, from coming up with an idea to validating that idea to ultimately scaling that idea up. And in these series of videos, we're going to show you some examples of how generative AI can have that impact across those different types of businesses. But one more thing I want to leave you with in this introduction is, what's the right mental model when thinking about this? And I believe the right mental model for generative AI is to think about the system as a co-founder, not as the CEO, but as a co-founder, right? So it's not autonomously driving the startup, but it's automating and adding new perspectives. It's also automating routine cognitive tasks. This is where I think Microsoft gets the analogy right with Copilot. Right? The point is not that autonomous systems today fly the plane, but also pilots without those systems are not as good as pilots with those systems. And so together, the pilot and the system together co-pilot the planes together. And across a lot of these AI systems, you can look at examples of co-creation, or maybe another way to think about it is creating, parts of it with the system, but humans are in the loop to weigh in on this. And that's the mental model as we walk through each of the different ideas you can do across each of the different steps in the life cycle. I want you to think about how AI cannot be this autonomous system that does the work for you, but can be this co-founder that supports you in the work.